All right, welcome to the explainer. So picture this, the classic, strong, silent leader. What if I told you that whole image isn't about strength at all, but actually it's a sign of fear? Today we're diving into Brené Brown's Dare to Lead, and we're going to see how it just completely flips that old script on its head to give us a much more human and frankly a way more effective blueprint for leadership. Okay, so let's jump right in. The whole idea really comes down to this big clash. On one side, you've got what she calls armored leadership. You know the type. The stoic boss who has to know everything, never shows weakness, is basically invulnerable. But here's the twist. The argument is that this isn't strength at all. It's a leadership style built on fear and just protecting yourself. And the alternative? Well, that's daring leadership, which takes every single one of those armored traits and just flips it courageously right on its head. And this really nails the problem, doesn't it? I mean, that strong, silent type we were all taught to look up to, the book just reframes that completely, calling it what it is, a defense mechanism born out of terror. That thing we used to call executive presence, well, a lot of the time it was just a performance, a show of being untouchable. But you gotta ask, in today's world where you need creativity and innovation, that kind of heavy armor, it's a huge liability. All right, so if the old way is busted, what's the fix? Well, there's a whole new framework, and really, it all kicks off with one single, incredibly powerful idea. And this quote, this is it. This is the absolute heart of the whole philosophy. I mean, forget everything you've ever been told. Courage and vulnerability, they're not opposites. They're basically two sides of the very same coin. You literally cannot get to courage without walking through vulnerability. It's the price of admission. It's what gets you in the game. So, where does all this brave work actually happen? Well, the book uses this amazing metaphor, borrowed from Theodore Roosevelt, called the arena. And you gotta understand, it's not some physical place, it's a state of mind. It means you're actually in the ring, you're in the work, you're exposed, you're willing to fail, you're gonna get criticized, you might get knocked down, but you're also willing to get back up. Okay, so if you're gonna step into that arena, you can't just wing it. You need a plan, a blueprint. And that's the cool thing. Daring leadership isn't just some vague idea. It's a concrete set of 4 skills that you can actually learn, see, and even measure. And here they are. These are the 4 pillars that hold the entire structure up. First, you've got rumbling with vulnerability, which is all about leaning into those hard conversations instead of running away. Next, you need a compass, an anchor, so you have to live into your values. Then, you build those crucial connections by braving trust. And finally, and this is a big one, because you absolutely will fall down in the arena, you have to be learning to rise. So let's dig into that first one a little more. What on earth is a rumble? Well, first off, it is not a fight. It's a whole different kind of conversation. It's one where you make a real commitment to stay curious, to be generous, and to not run away from the messy middle of solving a problem. You know that uncomfortable part where nothing is clear yet? A rumble is about having the guts to just stay there. Okay, so now let's get practical. Let's move from the big ideas to the actual toolkit, the specific skills you can use in the arena every single day. So the very first tool in the box is about taking off that armor. It's about this really intentional shift you have to make. You stop being the knower, the person who always has to be right, and you become the learner, the person who's focused on getting it right. And that also means ditching perfectionism. It's not about being flawless. It's about striving for excellence, which means you're okay with and even welcome making mistakes, because that's how you learn. Oh, this one is huge. It's probably one of the most powerful mantras from the entire book. The core idea is that when we avoid giving clear, honest feedback because we're trying to be nice, we're actually being really unkind, because being vague and unclear just creates a ton of stress and confusion for people. In fact, it's pretty selfish, right? You're just protecting yourself from feeling uncomfortable. Real kindness, true daring leadership, is being clear, even when it's really, really hard. All right, let's talk about trust. We tend to think of it as this big, fuzzy, abstract thing, right? But here, it gets totally deconstructed. The big takeaway is that trust isn't built in some big, dramatic, heroic moment. No, it's built in the small stuff, the tiny, consistent moments day after day. It's like adding one marble at a time to a jar. Slowly but surely, it fills up. And this is how trust stops being a feeling and becomes something you can actually do. The Braving acronym breaks it down into 7 very specific behaviors. So it's not just about being reliable. It's respecting boundaries. It's holding people accountable. My favorite is the V, the vault. It means you keep confidences. You don't share information that isn't yours to share. When you put them all together, you see that trust isn't magic, it's a practice. So when you're in the arena and the pressure is on, you need something to guide you, right? A compass. But here's the thing about core values. A long list of them is basically useless. The argument is you only really need this many. So why just 2? It sounds kind of crazy, right? But think about it. When you're really under pressure, a list of 10 values is just going to conflict with itself, and you'll be paralyzed. But if you narrow it down to your top 2, just 2, you have an unshakable anchor. It makes those really hard decisions so much simpler and so much clearer. Okay. This is another really crucial skill for a daring leader, understanding the difference between shame and guilt. And it's a huge difference. Guilt is focused on your actions. I did something bad. And that can actually be useful, right? It helps you fix your mistakes. But shame is completely different. Shame is destructive. It's not about what you did. It's about who you are. I am bad. And in a team or an organization, shame is toxic. It absolutely kills creativity because everyone becomes terrified to take a risk and fail. So you put all this together, the vulnerability, the trust, the values, and where does it all lead? Well, it leads to a massive fundamental shift. It forces us to completely redefine what a leader even is and what their real job is supposed to be. So take a look at this definition. The first thing you should notice is what's not there. There's nothing about titles, seniority, or where you sit on an org chart. Leadership in this model isn't about authority at all. It's an action. It's about taking responsibility for finding the potential in people and processes, and then having the courage, the guts, to actually develop that potential. And that brings us to the final, ultimate shift. It's all about how we think about power. The old armored leadership model, that's all about power over, hoarding it, controlling people. Daring leadership is completely different. It's about power with, which is collaboration, and power to, which is about giving other people real agency and empowerment. It's about sharing power, not keeping it for yourself. So if you remember one thing, let it be this. That thing we were all taught was a weakness, the thing we were supposed to hide at all costs, our vulnerability, it turns out it's the exact opposite. It's actually the source, the very birthplace of all the things we say we want: innovation, creativity, trust, and real change. It's not a liability to be managed. It is the absolute essential ingredient for leading with courage. And that's where we'll wrap up this explainer, but it leaves us with a really important question. And it's not a question for your boss or your team. It's a question for you, for each of us. When you look at your own work, at your own life, what piece of armor are you ready to finally take off? What are you ready to shed so you can start leading a little more briefly,